So today I'm going to share with you one of my favorite topics, and this is concentrating in the area of mind-body connection. And I'm going to share with you about the power of reframing. So I said this in a previous talk, that your mind is the most powerful medicinal agent at your disposal. You might not have access to all kinds of different treatments, but you control your thoughts. And your body is like a pharmaceutical manufacturing plant, and your thoughts are the prescriptions that you as the doctor you give to your body, so your body can heal itself. Your thoughts stimulate what the glands produce and release throughout the body. And so thoughts can either boost your immune system or they can depress your immune system through your glands. And so it is your thoughts that can cause you to go into the stress response that we know as fight or flight. The question is, how do those thoughts come up? And automatic thoughts give you instant responses in your body. And that's really the answer, automatic thoughts. So God created our bodies and our minds with the ability to have automatic thoughts, because there's many situations in life where you don't have the time to sit down and analyze what's going on and make a decision. Isn't that true? Can you think of any situations when you don't really have time to think, but your body still reacts? Well, your body doesn't react without cognition. You have to have a thought. And so God blessed us with automatic thoughts. Let me share with you a situation of when you don't have time to think. And you from Australia know a little bit about this in the South, the great whites. Sometimes you're just in a big situation that you need to get out of, and so you have automatic thoughts. So those critical situations need to be dealt with a fight or flight response. So you have automatic thoughts. But how were those automatic thoughts formed in your brain? It all comes from life experiences. They're lightning fast. So let me help you understand again the power of automatic thoughts. What do you all feel when you see that in your rear view mirror? What happens to your body?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, uh-oh. It's on the license plate there. Uh-oh. What happens to your body? It's tense. You panic. You can get a cold sweat. Your heart starts beating. But it happens how fast? Like that. I'll never forget the time that I did a California rolling stop. Anybody know what a California rolling stop is? Where you never actually stop. You just slow down. Coast is clear. And you keep going. Well, that happened to me, and as I kept going, I noticed out of the corner of my eye that there was a police officer in the corner waiting there, kind of cherry picking. And yes, boom, boom, my heart instantly started beating. There's a corner now by my house where the police officers are standing on the sidewalk. And I was sitting there at a red light watching the other people go around that corner. And I was amazed, and maybe it's just California, but about 8 out of 10 people were rolling right through the red light. And they just had a stop sign, and they just lined up. Every time the traffic light changed, they just lined up like 6 to 8 people, ticket after ticket. So it doesn't take but a flash for your body to react when you have some kind of threat, like looking at your mirror in the back, and guess what? The lights are on. Well, what kind of thoughts are going through your mind? What causes you to feel that panic right away? Some of you might think, oh, I may get a ticket. Others might think, I might go to jail. But not everybody's going to react that way. Some people won't have a panic at all. They'll just pull over and be very happy to greet the officer. Top of the day to you, sir. Because maybe in their experience, they never got a ticket. Maybe in their experience, they got a donut from the police officer. Maybe it's Citizen Appreciation Month, and the police officer was just stopping you to share with you from his donuts? Probably not, right? So what's behind that? Why do some people think that they might even be going to jail? And there's other people that just feel embarrassed, like, oh, I don't want the neighbor to see me, or I don't want my wife to drive by and see that I got stopped, right? Lots of people deal with embarrassment. Or, ooh, I'm going to get a ticket. Why do people have those thoughts? And why do people have different thoughts? Not all of us have the same automatic thoughts and response. That comes from life experiences and a thing that's called schema. We have many schema, and it makes up who we are in our soul. What is schema? Well, I like the definition that a person named Kendra Sherry put. She's the author of the book Everything Psychology book. She provides a great explanation of what schema are. She writes, a schema is a cognitive framework or concept that helps organize and interpret information. It's like this pattern that helps us get the thought, interpret it, and then our body receives commands how to respond to that. Schemas can be useful because they allow us to take shortcuts, so that's why it's so instantaneous. They allow us to take shortcuts in interpreting the vast amount of information that is available in our environment. But there's always a catch. However, these mental frameworks also cause us to exclude pertinent information, to instead focus only on the things that confirm our pre-existing beliefs and ideas. Schemas can contribute to stereotypes and make it difficult to retain new information that does not conform to our established ideas about the world. So we have pre-existing beliefs and thoughts on just about everything, and we develop those over a lifetime of experience. And I like it to this definition where it says, and schema reinforce stereotypes, and I think I found one there. All right. Okay. So life experiences are largely responsible for building the schema, and the schema determine what our automatic thoughts are. And I want to give you a little example. This actually is not a picture of you. Of how people's schemas are different due to their life experiences. And so their automatic thoughts will be different, and they will feel different reaction in their body depending on their life's experiences. So I put this picture up. Did it inspire any thought or reaction in your body, just seeing this man here? Well, some people might react to a picture of a gentleman with a gray beard, and they may feel panic and fear and want to leave the room where a man like that just walked in. Because maybe when they were a child, they had an angry person in their life that would abuse them physically, that had that kind of appearance. And so every time they see someone with a beard, without thinking about, their automatic thought is danger, because that bearded man used to beat me. Another person may not react like that at all. They may get happy thoughts, because what they remember was Grandpa, who used to dress up like Santa Claus at Christmas, and he had a wonderful gray beard. Can you start to see how we have different life experiences, and so we react to situations automatically, quickly, differently, dramatically different? You have the one person who's fearful because they associate that picture with physical abuse. You have the other person that says, hey, that's got to be a nice person. The question is, are those rational thoughts? When a new gentleman who has that appearance comes in, is it rational to think, Danger. Is it? You don't know that person. Is it rational for you to think, hey, that's got to be a nice person? So neither of those automatic thoughts are rational thoughts. They are irrational thoughts. They're automatic thoughts that come up based on a lifetime of experiences, but they may or may not be correct. So one of the best psychiatrists to talk about rational thoughts or irrational thoughts is a psychiatrist named Albert Ellis. And Albert Ellis came up with the ABC method, which is not, I'm not referring to the Jackson 5. ABC, or what? Okay. You better edit that part out. Or not, I don't know. And some people call it the ABCDE method. And what Albert Ellis came up with, what he proposed, was that every single emotional consequence that you have is rooted in an irrational thought. If you can identify the irrational thought, then you can change your behavior by changing the irrational thought to a rational thought. So let's go through this chart. What are your beliefs about event or the adversity? And so in your experience, people get tickets when they're pulled over by a police car. Then you're going to have, that's going to be your belief. I'm going to get a ticket. But if in your experience, usually people only get a warning from the police officer, you'll be less nervous because your belief is, I'll probably just get a warning. So see the emotional consequence. So that's what's going to react in your body and how you're going to feel about it, depending on what your beliefs are. And then to change the emotional consequences, you have to challenge the irrational thought. And so the example that I was giving about seeing a bearded man, if inside you just comes up danger, you have to challenge that. You have to say, wait a second, I don't know that person. It could be a decent gentleman. And so I'm going to get to know the person, and then I'll draw my conclusion. So you challenge that irrational thought. And then E, you have an effective new belief to replace the irrational ones. And then that's how you do stress management. So most of the emotional distress that you experience can be explained by negative thoughts or irrational thoughts that are making you be predisposed to having a poor experience. And so you can change that. And it's very necessary. Because as we explained in the talk about the psychoendoneuroimmunology, when you have negative thoughts, your glands are going to overproduce and release things like cortisol, hormones like epinephrine, and that's going to come at the cost of your immune system. So to take the stress off of your immune system, you need to replace negative thoughts with positive thoughts. Automatic thoughts are so fast it feels like we can't control them, but we can. Because when we are facing stressful situations, we can start to see patterns of how we react to them. And we can slow it down and we can say, wait, what is the irrational thought that I'm having? And we can replace that. One of the most powerful tools that I know of to change the way we think is called reframing. And what I mean by reframing? Well, you can actually think of a picture frame. Have you ever noticed that sometimes the problem isn't the painting, the problem is the frame? If you don't believe me that frames are very, very important, why don't you go and try to buy a nice frame and see what the cost is? Have you ever had a situation where the frame costs more than the photo? Frames are very, very important. And depending on the frame that you put on the picture, it changes how it looks. And I came across this picture and I love it. See how it looks like the day is a horrible day. It's all gray. There's nothing good about it. And this gentleman comes up with a new frame. He looks at it from a different perspective, and he sees that there's something beautiful. So we can change the way we look at things, and that way we can deal with the stressful thoughts. So let's work a little bit. How about I'm living and I'm dealing with cancer? So that's much more rational, right? Because you could have that irrational thought, that belief, I am dying because I have cancer. And someone would look at you and say, but you're not dying right now. You know, they could argue that. But if you said, I am living and I'm dealing with cancer, who could argue against you? Because that's a rational thought. So when we have these automatic negative thoughts, I'll get to you in a sec. When we have automatic negative thoughts, we have to figure out, well, what's the irrational thought? We need to arrest that. We need to come up with a good new thought, and that will help us manage stress. So fear of treatment actually is very, very common. I'll never forget a time that we were at a cancer congress. Dr. Contreras was a speaker, and we had in one of our books a chapter that was called Chemotherapy is Worse Than Death, or A Fate Worse Than Death, something like that. Bernie Siegel is a surgical oncologist that stopped operating on people and started just working in the area of mind and body. And he is one of the people who changed the term from cancer victim to cancer victor, did a lot of good work. Bernie Siegel came up and looked at Dr. Contreras and I, and he said, this is so horrible to write that statement, chemotherapy worse than death. And he said, really, it depends on what the person thinks. If the person thinks that chemotherapy will help them, chances are it will. If the person thinks that chemotherapy will not help them, chances are it won't. But you, as a treating physician, should not take the hope away from a person that believes in chemotherapy by saying it's a fate worse than death. And it really got us thinking about it. We said, well, yeah, you know, we need to be fair. So the negative thought is, this medicine is going to make me feel horrible. The new thought could be, it's helping me get well. And so it changes. You put a new frame, and it helps you deal with the stress of the situation. I'll share. There was a gentleman who came here who was a cousin of one of our former patients. And our former patient had a very, very good outcome and had referred his cousin to come here. And his cousin arrived and just isolated himself in the room. And this gentleman had like a stage 2 cancer. And he was in very, very good physical condition. So our former patient gave me a call and said, would you talk to him? Because as soon as he was diagnosed with cancer, he cut himself off completely from the world. He won't see his children. He won't see his wife. It's hard to even get him to eat. And so when I went to look for him, he actually was down in the cafeteria, and he was having his lunch. And so I introduced myself, and I asked him if I would be able to talk to him. And he said, sure, why don't you come to my room? And so we walked up the stairs to go to his room, and that really got my attention. He's eating fine. He's walking. He has the strength to go up with the stairs. And so what's going on here? And I asked him, I said, how come you're not talking to anybody? How come you've withdrawn from your life? How come you're not going to work? He was a ranch owner, and so was the owner, and he would go and work the ranch. How come you're not talking to your family? You're not going to work? And he says, don't you know that I'm dying? I said, what do you mean? What do you mean? I'm here for cancer treatment because I'm dying. It's just a matter of time. Why would I be involved in anything anymore? I'm dying. And I looked at him and I said, well, let me ask you a question. So I'm looking for the irrational thought, right? I'm doing the psychiatry kind of stuff on him. Little does he know it. Washing his brain. No, I just asked him a simple question. I said, when was the first time in your life that you realized that you were not immortal? What? Yeah, when was the first time that you realized that life wasn't forever? You would actually have to surrender this by, you will die someday. I said, oh, I don't know. I was probably like 17 at the time when I thought about my mortality. And I said, oh. So at age 17, did you isolate yourself? Did you stop living? Did you not go to work? He said, of course not. And I said, oh, so you went to work, you studied, yeah. You got married, you had kids, yeah. I said, you did all of that productive, good living, even though you knew that you were going to die someday? They said, well, yeah. I said, well, you have a stage 2 cancer. I noticed that you have plenty of strength and you're walking up the stairs and you're eating well. Seems to me like you have a lot of energy. He's like, well, yeah, my body feels really good. I said, but I thought you were dying. He said, well, yeah, but I'm feeling pretty good today. And I said, well, why don't you do something with that? I mean, none of us know how many days we have, but you have today. And I'm pretty sure you're going to have tomorrow, and probably lots of other tomorrows. And you may respond really well to the treatment. Maybe you're going to live 30, 40 more years. Or maybe you're going to live 30, 40 more months. But why don't you go back to the ranch and do the things that you love? Why don't you hang out with your grandkids and make some good memories? Why don't you share with them your life experiences? Instead of sitting in a corner saying, I'm dying, why don't you say, I'm living and I'm dealing with cancer, and you get back to doing the things that you love to do? Take advantage that you're in pretty good shape. And the man just had a release of emotional stress, and he said, that's right. And he did. And things turned around for him. Yeah, I mean, that's a clear case of the emotional. His biggest problem was his thinking, not what was going on in his body. And he had a great outcome physically. So years later, he's alive. I wanted to just share this and finish this talk with the thought as we're talking about the power of the mind and reframing. There's a verse in Romans chapter 12, pattern of this world. So patterns, remember framework, the schema? We shouldn't be conformed to those patterns, but we should be transformed by a renewing of the mind. Most people think of this in the terms of our thinking, our soul. But what I wanted to end this session with is to say that this verse is actually talking about our brain as well. Because every time you have a cognition, the synapses connect nerve cells and it creates pathways. And that's what the schema are stored in. Our memories are stored in these neuron chains. And so we can have these negative thoughts like a broken record just going around and around and around in our head. And we become slaves to negative thinking, our thought patterns. And so our body can be reacting through gland secretion to always stay in improper health. When you arrest an irrational thought and you put in a substitute healthy thought, when you have that thought, it starts to make neuron chains. And if you have the healthy thought again, you start to get a good schema built. And you start to replace the negative thoughts that come through the negative neuron chains, because those nerve cells, the brain cells, will eventually die off. And the more you have the healing of thoughts, the more you reinforce and regenerate the healthy neuron chains. So I like to read this verse, which is, don't conform yourself to the negative thought patterns, but be transformed in your body by a renewing of your brain cells and neuron chains. And so that is possible for us. It's another reason why I stand in awe of God, that He gave us the opportunity not only to refresh our soul, but to also generate new neuron pathways for healthy thinking. And so I thank you for letting me share this with you today. Thank you very much.